and I am the head of training and event enhancement here at Remo. And I am going to be joined here very shortly by our host, Erin, who is with our marketing department and is one of the gurus of product knowledge. Until then, I would like to know if I'm coming through loud and clear. So if you can do me a favor, if you can please, for me, it's over here, unless I'm mirrored on your screen, and it's over there. There is a chat, a general chat to the right-hand side of our screen, and I would love it if I'm coming through loud and clear, if you would be able to just type in there that you can hear me. Yes, I'm coming through. If you can say where you're from even. So I am coming to you from beautiful, gorgeous, I have to look outside the window, gorgeous, sunny San Diego, California. And I am really loving the fact that the May gray or the June gloom has lifted, and we have a lot of beautiful sun that has come out. So hello from Brooklyn. Hi, Peter. Welcome to Eugene from Raleigh. Greg, I know you're part of our hashtag Team Canada. So if you're part of Team Canada, let us know. Team Canada is always well represented. I know that we have Lauren from Leeds, UK. Andy, I know that you're over there in the UK as well. So Lauren and Andy, both of you guys from the UK. Anthony from New York. Welcome, everybody. Erin, I didn't realize you were Team Canada. How did I not even realize that you're Team Canada, Erin? Andy taught me how to say this. Is it Torquay? Torquay, I will never get that right. Andy, Team Torquay UK. That's how I'm just going to say it from now on. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being able to join us here today. We are going to get started here in just 1 second. But before we start, I do want to let you know that we have a feature, Torquay. That's where I was going wrong. Torquay. If you guys look just 2 tabs over from where we're talking in the chat, there is a Q&A feature. In that Q&A feature, if you can pop that open really quickly, I am going to ask you a quick question. So I like blue. It's actually more of a statement than it is a question, but you're going to see that pop up in the Q&A. There is a little thing that says vote. So if you like blue, please go ahead and hit that upvote button for I like blue. But if you like green, I am giving you another option here. I like green. So that if you like green, go ahead and upvote green. And this is one thing that I am demonstrating about how you guys can facilitate some of these events. I not only have just taught you how to use the chat feature, I have taught you how to use the Q&A feature, and I have taught you how to do polls in the Q&A feature. So in just a few seconds of facilitation, I'm hopefully making some meaningful connections where you're getting to know each other a little bit better. And you as a host are getting a little bit familiar with how to use the Remo, or as a guest here, as a host, I'm teaching you how to use the Remo features a little bit better. And I bet you didn't even realize it. I call that my putting the vegetables inside the cake. So I'm giving you some education and doing it in a manner that's making it fun for you. But again, a lot of these things that we're talking about here, I'm going to go into during my portion of the event, where it is going to talk more about how you can host and keep these meaningful connections built and lasted with Remo. So how many times you can only upvote the question once. So for one profile, you can upvote it once. And for those of you guys who have noticed, the poll is gone. As a host, I can click out and keep track of what questions have been answered, and to keep my Q&A a little bit clean, I have a special ability where I can to make it go away. So I talked to Eugene. He said, how many times can one upvote a question? The answer is once. You can click that upvote one time, and if you click it again, it takes your vote away. Now that I've answered that question, you're going to see it disappear from the Q&A because we just answered it. So Erin, are you able to join me up here on stage with your mic and cam? Otherwise, I can switch out a little bit and start with my part. I'm not sure. Sometimes we have some technical issues that happen. There we go. Hi, Erin.
Hey. Sorry about that.
I love that painting behind your shoulder. That's a really, really awesome painting.
Thank you.
Did you do that?
Yeah, I'm not sure who painted that, but my fiance hung it up there so the wall wouldn't look too bare, and I really like it. So that's the story I'm sticking with.
What? Or you can just say, yeah, I painted it. That's me. That's all
I
me.
could tell people, but then they would ask me to paint things, and I'm not a good painter. So
Yeah. So things that we've just learned about Erin is that he's not a good painter. Again, just with this little brief MC, getting us all energized. Everything that we're doing today, there's going to be a teaching moment. So without further ado, Erin, can you please introduce yourself?
yeah, of course. Hi guys, I'm Erin. I work on the product and marketing side of Remo. One of the things we're trying to do on the product side is ensure that everybody who uses the platform is engaged. When it comes to networking, they have all the tools necessary from a host and a guest perspective. So the general message today is to ensure that you're equipped with the tools. If you're a host on the Remo platform, you have all the tools necessary to create those meaningful connections. And of course, if you're a guest, I'll also be giving you the guest perspective of things that they can expect, things that your guests can expect, and things that guests will utilize within the platform to build those meaningful connections.
And then step 2 for me is making sure I find that mic on to be able to talk. So we have a question. Who are the Scarves from?
Okay, so the scarves, I have another thing. I used to collect scarves when I was real younger, so sports scarves. I have a Yankee scarf, a Manchester United scarf, and a Dundee United scarf that came from Scotland. One of my close friends threw me a scarf from Scotland. So those are the scarves. A lot of people ask me if I'm a sports fan. I am. I'm a diehard Yankee fan. Probably get a lot of boos with that one if we had those emojis, but yeah, those are the scarves. Of course, your Steelers mug. I'm a Browns fan, so Katrina and I go back and forth on that. She's been more successful than I have when it comes to NFL. So
All right, Andy's going to send you a Torquay United scarf. So again, this is ways that you can get everybody engaged, energized in the beginning of your presentation, in the beginning of your event. You see all these things that may seem like a little random, but you're interested, right? If you're interested, give us like a little thumbs up or like a yes. Okay, I see what you're doing, to be able to get people really engaged. So with that, I'm going to actually stop talking now and let Erin talk about his part.
perfect, guys. So I'm here to talk about the guest experience for Remo. I'll start by speaking on my experience. My first ever Remo experience was me sitting in a guided demo. Even though I may not seem that way, I'm very introverted. In this demo, there's people coming in from all parts of the world: Australia, England, United States, South Africa, and I'm just sitting in my corner being my introverted self. But I'm taking my mouse and I'm hovering across different people's profiles to see where they're located in, what company they come from, things of that nature. And I noticed a Canadian flag and the time zone was the same, so I jump on that table, try to find some common links. In speaking with somebody, we come to realize that I had just left the property management industry. She was in the property management industry. Long story short, within 2 minutes, I built a meaningful connection, and it wasn't my goal, it wasn't my anticipation, it was my intention. So that's just one way that you can build a connection, by finding something that you have in common with another person. Again, I was just sitting at another table with Greg, who mentioned that he's from Canada. And within a minute, he introduced me to a paneer pizza spot in Edmonton, Alberta. And since that meeting, the whole time I'm thinking about having a paneer pizza. And I'll now associate that with Greg. So these meaningful connections can really come from anything. Like you showed us, Katrina, with the pineapple and the pizza analogy. We can really draw these meaningful, lasting connections outside of the platform. Beyond this, if we have some common goals, some common things that we like. Another thing I want to cover is the value of being distinguishable, moving around. We all move to a table. Some people move to the pro-pineapple table. Some people move to the anti-pineapple table. If you can be distinguishable, and I'll teach you one way to do that, is to highlight your business profile or your social card. We all have social cards. When we break back into the networking mode, you'll be able to click on anyone's profile and see their headline. You'll be able to see their location. And if they've populated it with links like their LinkedIn link, a Calendly link to book a meeting, Facebook or Twitter link, you'll be able to click those links and you'll be able to see exactly what Katrina is showing you right now. This is our business profile. This is your social card or your business card. So what you want to do is ensure that these are populated to the full extent that you possibly can. This is also a key tool for building connections. If you're having a conversation with somebody and you align in the same industry, as an example, you'd be able to click any one of these links or book a meeting with them, change your profile picture. I've even seen a couple of guests enter emojis, or they might put their city in their name. So Justin Hollywood Man is a good example of that on the Remo team. So everyone associates him with Hollywood in California. So these are just some tricks to try to be as visible as possible.
I would say the fun fact there is I gave him that nickname because we have two Justins, and I had a 35-minute meeting with the wrong Justin, but luckily it was on a topic that we were supposed to have a meeting on anyway. So I had to have a second 35-minute meeting with the other Justin. So that's how that nickname came to be, if you ever see Hollywood. But again, meaningful connections.
Yeah, most definitely. That's it. And the last thing, in product and marketing, we talk a lot about conversions. What is a conversion? It's really a successful event to occur. In sales, a conversion is a sale. They submitted their credit card on the website. Google Analytics reads that, and now you have a conversion. In other, it's a demand metric where you're trying to count the success. For guests, there also is a level of conversion, especially when it comes to Remo events. Guests have expectations, and they'll be very different from host expectations. For a host, an expectation might be an attendee, like hitting a certain attendee target, or ensuring that the boards are set up correctly, ensuring that the features are working correctly, ensuring that at the end of the event you have meaningful connections, or you've even created a positive ROI, if that's the goal. From the guest perspective, that's a host perspective. From the guest perspective, the conversion is really the amount of conversations you have. So one way to measure your success rate for networking on the Remo platform is to give yourself a goal. Give yourself a goal of creating just conversations. They don't have to be meaningful connections. They don't have to be anything of substance. But if you have enough conversations with people, and if you use that as your metric, for example, I want to have 5 conversations in this event. Chances are I'm going to create a meaningful connection somewhere in between there, just by talking, just by being visible, just by, of course, on Remo, we strive to have your camera on, your mic on, so you can be visible at all times. So when you're thinking of Remo from a guest perspective, I want you to think about it from a conversion perspective. And from conversions for guests, it's more likely, am I going to have a good experience? And how many conversations am I going to have? Inevitably, those conversations will lead to meaningful connections, where you could exchange LinkedIn information. You could have a connection outside of the event. You could now follow up. You could email. We give you that visibility in your business profile to contact and to email people, book links, things of that nature. So the purpose of this from a guest perspective is to always ensure that you're using these tools, utilizing these tools, being memorable, moving around. In the case of Justin, associating it with a landmark in your city as an example. One of the things we try to do at Remo is to push for a global reach. What we say is that you could be connecting with somebody. I'm located in Toronto. I could be connected with somebody in Australia, or somebody in London, for example. And with that global reach, you kind of need those common things, which is why Katrina brought out the great example of the pineapple on pizza, which at my table, there was a discussion of, yeah, sometimes we like the pineapple because it brings an element of sweetness to the pizza, but in other cases, it's just not needed. So you could really branch and find any common goals or common things that you might have in common with somebody, and create those meaningful connections that matter.
While you're talking about those profiles, we do have a question from Andy, is can there be a Twitter link in the profiles? And I'm going to jump in real quick, Andy, and say, yes, we are talking with, product is talking with itself and asking us for some information about what could be in the profiles. And that is a feedback point that we did give to them. So the profile card is looking at being designed, redesigned and revamped. So I will definitely take that back, Andy. That Twitter profiles would be a good piece of social to have in those in that connective link as well. So thank you for that question. Sorry to interrupt your flow, Erin.
No worries, no worries. It's perfect.
I just
Thanks for
wanted to hit
answering.
that. I wanted to hit that while we were on it.
Perfect. So yeah, I just want to wrap up my presentation from the guest perspective. The three things you want to be mindful of when you're a guest on the Remo platform is to ensure that your business card is always as filled as possible. You don't have to include Calendly links, but that's another good way of getting people to book meetings with you and creating connections outside of the platform. Another tip is there's value in being distinguishable, moving around, having as many conversations. And lastly, as a guest, you want to set conversions for yourself, internal conversions. And for me, one of those conversions are how many conversations am I going to have in this particular event? And from those conversations, you could deduce that you might generate 1, 2, 3, even more meaningful connections that extend beyond the Remo platform and that allow you to have an industry connection or a connection that you may need in the future. Just beautiful friendship.
Does anybody we have a couple minutes for Q&A. And see if anyone has questions for Erin. I know that Eugene had 2 questions, which I answered in the chat. And again, this is my fault. Normally, whenever I MC, I say, please use the Q&A function if you have questions, because when there's a lot of people in, it gets lost in the chat. And a lot of times our MC or our host or our speaker cannot follow along in the chat, and it's really awkward for them to pause and scroll up and scroll down to figure out what questions are. So the Q&A feature is really easy to keep track of everything. And the other thing is, if you have a very limited time for questions and answers, and there are a lot of questions, if somebody has the same question that you do that has already been asked, they can use that upvote feature, so that if we say we only have 5 minutes for Q&A, I can only take a couple questions, the audience will then determine what questions the majority of the audience has to be answered first. So it actually makes it easier for the host to manage the interactions. So this way the host can ignore the chat, especially if they're up here by themselves doing everything alone. I was able to do both because Erin was talking and I was facilitating. So hopefully that answers that question. And Eugene says, I noticed the presenter's audio momentarily dropped out when screen sharing was turned on and off. That is my fault. I did not give Erin a cue that I was sharing my screen. What is happening is there is a momentarily a camera refresh, because we're in a browser. When something changes, the browser has to react to it. So when we go into a share screen, the cameras refresh for a second. When we close the shared screen, the cameras refresh for a second. So normally I would say, Erin, I'm sharing my screen, but he was having such a nice flow, I didn't want to interrupt him. So he did drop out for half a second. Typed responses should not be posted into the Q&A, just because then it starts to get confusing. It is up to you as a host. I personally do not type the responses into the Q&A, because then it confuses what is a question and what is a response. And that way, if we go back into chat, everything that's in chat, like a response like this, when we go into conversation mode, it's still held there. So you can see it. You cannot see the Q&A afterwards. But as an event host, at the very end of the event, so I've already erased a lot of the questions. They are saved in the back end. So at the end of the event, you can go to your post-event analytics and download every question that was asked, and it prioritizes it in the most popular questions. Peter says, for you, Erin, love the platform. The last time I attended a Remo demo session in March was with the fantastic Tasneem, who was here. I don't think RTMP streams into an event were supported yet. Any update on the feature? Erin, do you want me to handle that?
Please, and thank you. Please and thank you.
RTMP is not supported at this time. I do have a lot of, and we just did a masterclass. Tasneem and I just did a masterclass, and we talked about streaming. If you are not a member of the Remo Revolution community, that is our specific community for anyone who's interested in virtual events. And then if you are a paid Remo subscriber, we have a sub-community called the Super Hosts. And there's a lot of stuff that we talk about in there. And we've done master classes, and we have done success labs specifically related to streaming, about ways that we as hosts can use streaming even with the RTMP not quite supported yet. That is one of the top recommendations that we are making to product, and to explain why it's so important to have some RTMP capabilities. So like I said, it is not in yet, but it is in the works. I cannot give you any exact times of like when it may be implemented, but just do know it is very high on the list of needs that we would like to implement. So thank you for that question, Peter. Are there any other questions for Erin about this as a guest, from the guest perspective? Okay, things that we've learned about Erin: he's anti-pineapple on pizza, he's not a great painter, and that Andy needs to send him a proper scarf. So those are three we've learned.
I love it.
So, oh, we have one more question that's popped up. Can guests ask questions verbally? Why don't we show you how to do that? So what I'm going to do, Eugene, you're going to get a pop-up. What is the link for someone new joining Success Lab? Great question, Andy. I'm going to let Eugene say hi first, and then I'm going to answer that. So hi, Eugene. Do you have a question for us?
Hi, Eugene.
Hi. That was a question, and you've answered it now by bringing me up on stage.
And I'm going to show you if you could stay up here for 1 second, Eugene, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So again, because I'm sharing my screen, I'm giving you guys a verbal warning. There's going to be a little bit of a pause while everything refreshes. Under the participants list, you see we have Hope. I can see. We have attendees on stage right now. So Eugene has been elevated out of the attendees. I go to Comic-Con all the time. I go to San Diego Comic-Con. I'm a gigantic nerd. I go to the panels. And at the end of the panels, everybody can come up to the mic and ask their question and sit down. Same exact thing here is that if I wanted, Eugene wanted to come up, all I have to do is click this button, this little blue guy. And now because he's blue, gives him a message saying come up. So for Andy and I do this all the time because Andy helps me facilitate other master classes. So if I hover over Andy's gray button, it says make him a speaker. It's going to say, are you really sure that you want Andy to come up here? And I'm going to say, heck yeah, I want Andy to come up here because Andy's awesome. So that is now going to move Andy out of the attendees and up to attendees on stage. All Andy has to do is click a little button that says, you've been invited to stage, join with camera. And then Andy is now up here on stage with his lovely Torquay to make Erin a little jealous. If Andy's done asking his question and I want him off stage and not to be able to come on, because now anytime that Andy and Eugene turn their microphone and cameras on and off, they can come at will. If I remove the permissions, he no longer can do that. However, if I use these three buttons on here, I can have Eugene's video stop. I can have Eugene's microphone stop, but Eugene on his own can still come up here, by turning on your microphone and camera. So Eugene, turn on your microphone and camera. Andy can be furiously clicking away at his microphone and camera, but I gave his permissions away. So now Eugene can do this until I click that blue button again, and bye, Eugene. And so that's how you can control that.
We have a few more questions.
Yeah. Do you have any tips for starting up conversations with somebody new, like topics to discuss, avoid, etc.? I'm about to talk about that in 1 second, so I will come back around to that, but I'm going to leave that question up in case I missed something. In terms of interactivity, can you recommend any third-party engagement tools? I've been using Mentimeter, and I think it's great. It could work great with Remo. We literally just did a masterclass about this that wrapped an hour ago. So if we have time after this, I can stay longer. If anybody who wants to stay longer, I can give you some of those tips, but I don't want to take away from this presentation right now. So I'm going to go through things a little quickly because we only have an hour. I have the next 10 minutes, and then Peter, we can circle back to that. But again, if you're in the Remo Revolution community, this is the most wonderful thing about Remo is that we have a built-in peer-to-peer knowledge base, and we have an entire section inside that community called Fun and Games in Remo, where it talks about third-party engagement tools. And literally, we just did a masterclass on this, so I'm so excited to know that we're hitting the topics that you guys want to see. So with that being said, if you cannot tell, I am a little bit of a talker, so I am going to activate a feature that is going to clue me in on when my time is wrapping. Before I start, Greg says, I have an idea. Can we make a checklist for people to use at the beginning of table networking sessions? Can we make a checklist in the Q&A that people can use that they would obviously have to keep track of their checks? The group would only see as it increases. That's something, Greg, we can talk about. So Erin, let's kind of tag that in our brains that was something like that came up.
For sure. That's a good question.
So right now, I have a timer queued up for 10 minutes. I'm going to press start, and the 10 minutes is going to start now. So my part of the presentation is facilitating tips. So tips for facilitating a group of strangers to feel comfortable with participating and communicating in a very strange environment. And so normally what I would do is I would be in the back end, if I was a speaker, putting this into the chat. So that would be my topic. The other thing I'm going to ask you to do is I am going to reinforce my learning with you by asking you to use the chat feature whenever I say number. So like number 1 is going to be establish your goal. And as I talk, what really helps and what really helps your audience is type that in the chat. Number 1, establish your goal. So it's like you're taking notes, but you're taking notes here in the chat, and it really is going to solidify some of these learnings. It's a proven technique. Thank you, Tasneem. Number 1, establish your goal. So you have to ask yourself the very first question: what is the goal of my event? What is the demographic of the people in my event? And that's going to help you understand the tone. It's going to help you understand the need that you're going to have from very first second that you're planning one of these events. So if your tone is a little bit more serious, you may not want to have super silly kind of icebreaker games or icebreaker questions. You may want to have something that's a little bit more specific to where you are, what your company does, what different divisions you're in. So figure out how to get people segmented and set the tone for your event based on that. Number 1, what is your goal? Number 2 is the welcome. So you further number 1 with your number 2 is welcome your guests and set your tone. So number 2 is once you're in event, welcome your guests and set that tone. We did this with you guys in the very beginning. We used the announcements feature to be able to set the tone, to welcome, to give you guys in the moment information. Hey, welcome, thanks. What we want you to do right now, turn on your microphone and camera and just say hi to somebody. And so this guides your guests into what steps they have to take to be able to have the meaningful connections established. You need to turn on your microphone and camera if you want to start establishing that meaningful relationship. And then it gives you a couple minutes that if somebody has something going on where their microphone and camera is not turning on, it gives you and your team a couple seconds to be able to troubleshoot while people are networking in the very beginning. You can set your tone. How silly do you want to be? How serious? How much time do you want to build for this? The second thing is then you want to have engaging icebreakers or engaging activities. So number 3 is engaging icebreakers or engaging activities. And it doesn't have to take long. So what's the best way for strangers to have a nice conversation where they're just not sitting here going, yep, hi, hey, hi. And especially like we have extroverts and introverts. Extroverts, not a problem. But for introverts, so I'm, if you haven't noticed, a little bit of an extrovert. I think Erin has identified himself as a little bit of an introvert. So start the topics like we just did with pineapple and pizza. Another thing that you can do is, are you team Canada or are you team rest of the world? So looking at who's registered, where are they at? Are you team, if it's your company or your association, are you team west of the Mississippi or are you team east of the Mississippi? Are you team whatever would be relevant to the Canadian?
I think it would be like Ontario and East or Western Canada.
So that way you're giving people that lead, that prompt, so that they're not just sitting there staring at each other going, hi, what am I supposed to do? And again, the way that you can keep these meaningful connections lasting is if you're going by demographic. Oh my gosh, you're that close to me. That's awesome. And just like Erin had talked about, I just learned about a new pizza place that I'm definitely going to go have to try out. Within 3 minutes of talking to somebody, because we separated by, oh, hey, you're in Canada. I'm in Canada. Oh my God, this is awesome. So you can see how that sort of just real simple, very low tech thing. Another way that you can do it is by using the whiteboards. So we have human bingo. This takes a little bit more of planning on your part. As part of your registration, ask your guests to submit 3 fun facts about themselves. And you choose one of those fun facts and you create a little human bingo sheet. And everybody has to jump around and talk to other people to say, hey, oh, is this you? Are you the person that hiked Mount Kilimanjaro? Are you the person whose birthday is in January? And you learn these fun, unique little facts. One thing that I share a lot is that I spent 5 years in Moscow. I went there to do my master's degree. And one of my favorite sayings that they have is, if you ask somebody, do you know this person? Their response is either, oh, yes, or it'll come back and say, no, I've not drank with them. And what that translates at is I've not really sat down with them. I've not gotten to know them as a person. So yes, they may be an acquaintance, but as far as knowing them, I haven't built that community, that connection with them on a deeper level, because we really haven't sat and been able to do that. And that's how these sort of interactions are able to do that. So we do have a host of icebreakers and icebreaker games that we have created, and we have it listed. We actually have it also in a help article. So if you want a couple of icebreaker ideas, we have this in an article right here that I am about to put into the chat. And again, so you had talked, Eugene, about keeping an eye on the Q&A and the chat. Right now, Tasneem is part of our team. Erin is doing that while I'm over here wildly running out of time. Number 4 is, what are some tools that you can use in Remo? Number 1, the countdown timer. That's why I pulled it up. So I'm like, I have 3 minutes. But if you're wanting to do something like speed networking, if you're wanting to do something where you have a certain timed amount of time, you can give a visual clue. So right now, the green is just slowly trickling by, but you're going to see it go to a yellow. And then when the timer's out, you'll see it go to a red. That's just a visual cue. We have a shuffle feature. So a lot of times people who are networking are really engaged in conversation and they just don't want to jump around. So we have a button called shuffle, where if you click shuffle, it's going to show everybody moving around the Remo floor plan, and they'll land at new tables with new people to talk to. And they can even do the same kind of icebreakers. They can ask, you can have them do the same questions, but with a new set of people. So you can say, I can have 5 rounds of 3 minutes. At the end of 3 minutes, you click shuffle, it gives a 30-second countdown, and off you go. So those are 2 features that you can use. So my number 4 is using features inside Remo to be able to facilitate your ability to stay on time and on task and on agenda. So there are some of these things that we have built in with the networking. And again, if people see that they only have a couple minutes left to network, then they're going to want to jump in, or they're going to be a little bit more paying attention because they realize that their time is limited. There's no just end time where they're just like zoning out. One thing that we will say is that build some of these things in, not just at the beginning, but throughout the day. Especially if you have a long conference. Crap, I just went yellow. Especially if you have a long conference, or if you have a long stretch of time, break it up. Go down into conversation mode. Have a couple of these things which allow people to get up and go take a break, or get some more coffee, or like take a phone call, or just like decompress for a second, focus, and then they can come back. Using the chat feature. A lot of people don't like to use the chat because they think it takes away from people paying attention to the presenters, but as you can see, it's the exact opposite. People get more engaged. And finally, leveraging networking, not just for the event that you're in. So it's follow-on events, or what we call number 5 is continuity events. I'm starting it out. Continuity events are, if you're having an in-person or a hybrid event, have a networking session a week before. Have one of these sessions a week before. So whether they're in person or whether they're joining online, you have people inside this space before the event, almost like a cocktail party, getting to know each other. And if they're making these connections in advance, they are going to be more excited to see people live at your event. So they are more likely to show up to your event. If your event has run over a few days and you just couldn't get to, you had 20 minutes for a topic and it was a popular topic, a week and a half later, say, we had this topic and there was a great response to it. So we're going to give you a whole hour on this topic if you want to come back. So you can have these events kind of built in. If you have a lot of people who made connections during your event, have your continuity event afterwards to say, all right, so everybody who was at this event, especially if it was an association or if it was for a university where you need to have peer-to-peer research, make those connections here and follow them on and have these mini events afterwards, especially if you have one annual or one quarterly. You keep your people, dang, I just went red. You keep your people engaged. And that way it's easier for them the next time you have a registration. You don't have to start from zero. You have a list of people who have not disconnected from you from your last event. And that way you can build that momentum, and then they can tell friends and those friends can tell friends. And that's how you can build up the attendance at your event. And finally, you can also partner with things like Facebook groups or a community that you've built. So for example, we have the Remo Revolution community. Andy, I see you and I choose to ignore you. I recognize and appreciate you. I told you I'm a talker. The Remo Revolution community came out of events like these. We now have over 1,400 people in the community who are discussing virtual events, asking questions, answering questions peer-to-peer. So we have started the discussions at a few of our events, and we continue it through this community that we've built. So if you want to know how to build a community for yourself, come into the Revolution and we can help you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Q&A. I only went a half a minute over. Let's stay with a half a minute over. Does anybody have questions? I know I just talked really, really fast. Peter, hopefully as terms of guest interactivity, third-party engagement tools, we use AHA slides. We use Slido. We use photo booths. We use, Tasneem, what's the third one that I promise you I was paying attention to that you had on your slide this morning and I totally forget it now. I don't know if Tasneem is still here. What's the third one? There's a couple that will allow you to present content. They'll let you do polls. They'll let you see in real time how everybody's voting. So those are pretty awesome. We also use streaming. Streaming is a higher level discussion for a later time. And then so Peter, we recorded the masterclass this morning and we will be placing it inside the community. Did my audio drop down? I'm on a.
No, I think you're good.
Okay. My internet connection. So I'm right across the border from Mexico, and Mexico built towers that are on the same frequency as my provider here. And sometimes when they're doing something, it interferes. So please, I appreciate you pointing that out because that does happen to me sometimes. So thank you. But that masterclass we did this morning is inside the Remo Revolution community. So you can look at it anytime, as are others that we have recorded. And that's the beauty of Remo, is that you are not just like here on your own. Andy, I'm going to point out Andy again as somebody who is one of our really strong Remo professional users, expert in many, many things. He's inside the community. He jumps in and answers questions all the time for people. So, so hopefully, Peter, that answers your question and we can do some more follow. And then whoever asked, do you have any tips for starting up a conversation with somebody new, like topics to discuss, topics to avoid? Always want to avoid politics, religion, anything that is polarizing. So I say you have safe polarizing. You want a polarizing question as a host. You want it to be polarizing, but you want it to be safe polarizing. Pepperoni pizza, or sorry, a pineapple on pizza is 100% a polarizing question, but it is a safe polarizing question. You're not going to get people walking away going, how did they do that? And like, this is not social media. Like, we don't want to have social media type, like, polarizing, but we want to have safe polarizing. So I will always default to that. Or demographic interaction. Andy, I'm telling you, jam first or cream first is a dangerous question in Devon and Cornwall. This is carried over because Andy was in our last event and we had a whole polarizing question on what is a biscuit versus what is a scone. So that is how we were able to interact. So for those of you guys who weren't with us at the last masterclass, and I love this. I love this community. I love this platform, because it's people who make it fun, and we're able to carry on these things, and we have built these connections. So Andy, I teach a class called Success Labs. Andy comes to Success Labs, and over the past year, we have built this really great oh shoot, I just closed it. I meant to extend it. Built this great relationship. I've never met Andy in real life, but I feel like Andy is like he's a really great friend. So those are how you can do it. So with that, I am way over my time, and I don't know if there's any other Q&A. If you do have questions, go ahead. When we close down and go into conversation mode, I will make myself available for a little while for anyone that can stay. And with that, I will turn the floor back over to Erin.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys. So now I do have to mention that if we have any sales related questions, we do have, I see him there, Finley. Yep, we do have a sales rep in here. So if we do have any sales related questions with regards to our packaging, things like that, if you haven't used Remo in a while and you're looking to use it, please be in touch with Finley. You could direct any questions straight to him, and he'll be happy to answer any sales related questions. And here he is.
Hi, Finley.
Hey, I'll hang out in conversation mode over at one of the tables if anyone wants to come talk to me about sales related stuff. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Does anyone have questions while we have him up here? That's good for the group. Not anything
Sure.
that's just like individualized or personalized. Andy, scones are biscuits, and biscuits are cookies. I know. But if anyone has questions, go ahead and ask them now. Otherwise, we'll do our wrap up and then get everyone back down into conversation mode. I will be at one table, Erin will be at a table, Finley will be at a table, and you can feel free to jump around. If you want to, you can use the private chat feature to message us as well. So under the general chat, you can have table or private. Just look us up by name. I don't see any questions. So with that, I will turn it back to you, Erin.
Perfect. Are we good to go in conversation mode now?
Let's do this. Does anybody have any very last minute, oh, by the way, questions for us, for either Erin or myself about any of the topics that we covered? We did record this session and it will be placed into the community so that you can revisit it. And then Erin, I'm sure that with marketing, you guys might have it hung somewhere as well. I'm just not familiar with where that might be.
Sure. I think we have a question from Eugene.
Mm-hmm.
While viewing Q&A and a new post is added to chat, a red circle with number appears next to chat. That does not appear to happen while viewing chat, and a new Q&A is posted. Is that correct?
So yeah, the chat feature, it does have a little red, and you'll see that in conversation as well. The Q&A does for me as a host. I can see, so can somebody do me a favor? Let me test this out real quick. Can somebody put a question in the Q&A right now? Because I am in my chat tab and I don't see what's going on in Q&A. So can somebody put a question in there real quick? Yep, so I, as a host, have a one bubble that has just popped up in the Q&A to identify to me that there is a new question. So Andy has just posted questions, so I can bounce back and forth to do that. You see the chat because as a guest and attendee, you are in the general chat. I think with the Q&A, you're not going to see that a new question has been posted. I think that's only for hosts to be able to see that bubble, unless it is for you guys. I don't have the guest view right now, so that's something I should probably play with. So, but if you're in one, it'll pop up for the other. So at least for me as a host. Does anybody else have questions? Now, Erin, I have to apologize because that second cup of coffee has really kicked in.
No worries, no worries.
Okay, I see a red circle when in chat and a new Q&A happens. Yeah, so if you are in one tab, the assumption is that you're seeing it as it's going on, and it will notify you about a tab that you're not in to pull your attention to it. Same thing in conversation mode. If you're getting a private chat, it'll give you that circle. So we have about 5 minutes of the normal time. I have extended the building. You may get a pop-up that says it's going to end in 2 minutes. Just ignore that because I've extended the building. If anyone wants to stay and hang out and talk to myself, I can hang out. Finley's going to be down there. Erin's going to be down there. So
For sure, come by and say hi.
Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will see you down at the tables.